ignite a huge ball of incandescent gas
Yeah.
over an area and see what kind of reports they would get in terms of observations and how people explained it, because they wanted to kind of get a general idea of how many people were maybe embellishing what they were telling the authorities or what they saw and what actually people
Huh.
would have seen.
Interesting. I knew you'd have something about that to know, though. You always know stuff if I'd bring up anything. I could say there are lizard people, and you'd have some story to tell me about lizard
Oh,
people.
lizard people.
Aren't there?
That's well, if you believe in the hollow Earth theory, there is lizard people.
All right. Of course,
It's
one leads to the other. You can't have a hollow Earth without lizard people. Yeah.
well, so
Donald Trump.
you watch Doctor Who, right, Scott?
On occasion, I'm not a huge diehard.
But you know the episode where there's that kind of Victorian lizard lady or
Mhm.
reptilian lady, kind of that's pulled off that myth, tall tale,
Yeah.
extravagant conspiracy theory.
Yeah. I seem to
Well, this
remember.
is way more interesting than vintage computers.
Yeah, I was gonna say we could. I was gonna say there's like X-Files episodes we could refer to. There's all sorts of.
Well, let me ask you this, Evan. Of any vintage computer, are there any computer lines or models that specifically that stand out to you? Like for me, it's always been the Amiga line, whether it's the 500, 1200, or 1000, or three. I guess the last one was the 3 or 4000. And I was always been fascinated because that whole thing was started by a bunch of doctors, and initially it was supposed to be a video game console, and the bottom fell out of that in the U.S. market. And it's like, well, let's just make it a computer.
Mhm.
And through a quirk of the way they designed it, it became a super awesome tool for TV studios and doing video work, because you could basically run what they call a genlock, which is basically a time sync to allow you to insert graphics in between the frames.
Right.
Of
And there's
old
a
analog
wonderful
video.
book. There's a wonderful book called "The Future Was Here" that just came out a year or two ago, all about how the Amiga was more advanced than the Macintosh, even though it was a year later, had the color and the video capabilities and everything else. And the author argues that, and this is not my personal opinion, the author argues that the Amiga is where modern multimedia computing started, not the Macintosh.
Yeah.
It's an interesting argument.
Yeah, it is, and there's some. I think there's some validity to that. That's super interesting.
It
I
is,
think I have the book somewhere right about.
I love that. I love the fact that you have the book right behind you.
Yeah. Like Tom never left.
Pretty sure here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Here's a book. It's called "The Future Was Here" by Jimmy Maher.
Oh,
Can you read that?
Huh,
yeah, I'm
I'll
gonna
have
check.
to write that down.
It's a good book.
That sounds great.
But to answer your question, Roger, for me, I grew up on an Apple II, it's platinum right here. That's just the computer we had in my middle school and everything. Learned BASIC on it, and so that's the one that made me a computer geek.
Yeah,
Oh, nice.
rugged
The
stuff.
Apple II.
Did you grew up in the you spent your formative years in the 80s, I take it.
Right, I'm 41. I was born the end of '74. So
Yeah.
I have a picture on my wall here, which you can't see, but a picture on my wall here from December '79 when I was 5. My brother was 8, and we're unwrapping our Atari we got for Hanukkah.
Oh.
That's awesome. And then my bar mitzvah present was the Apple II. So that's my background.
Was that something that came as a complete surprise, or did you drop hints?
I think it was a surprise because we already had Intellivision, and the only game we had was Pong. And as dumb as it sounds now, it's funny because I remember distinctly, I was a little boy playing Pong on the TV, and I always wondered, I don't think I said anything to anybody, but I always wondered why the controller had other buttons on it beside the paddle. We didn't know they did. We didn't know there were other games. We just thought it was a Pong machine. And we had no idea there were other games. Like, for the life of me, I couldn't figure out what those other buttons were for in the controller. And then we got Atari, so I never stopped and thought about it any further than that. And we stopped playing with Intellivision. But now I know there were lots of other games you could have got. We just didn't know. So I went Intellivision, Atari, and then Apple II, and then 486 from there, I guess.
So
Now
you
had Linux.
you got the Compute magazine, right?
No, we got Byte.
I remember. I'm not sure if Byte did, but I know definitely Compute. You used to have those programming pages, where it'd be like 6 pages of essentially just assembly for the Motorola or whatever processor, and you just type it in. one
Yeah,
by one. And if
all I
you,
learned as a kid was what was logo and then basic. I never got that far in assembly.
it was well, you had to because initially the Commodore and a lot of the other computers didn't really offer uh, any really uh, useful interpreted languages until BASIC started
Yeah, I
shipping
think
with everything.
actually, I think I was in fifth grade was my last year of elementary school, and they had this one computer. It was either a VIC 20 or a 64. I don't remember which exactly. Um, and they every once a week or so they roll around to the kids, and me and a couple other kids just took to it, and we learned logo and turtle graphics, and it was okay. But when I got the Apple II and learned BASIC in sixth grade in middle school, that's the one I really associated with. So
I think
sorry, Commodore people.
Family Computing used to do that. They used to offer basic programs in the back end. You would have to type those.
I
Well,
remember.
but Byte did the same. My parents would buy me books. You would type in the programs and
I
stuff.
loved Byte.
Yeah, Byte was great. Where is Byte now? It's gone, I guess.
Yeah, was it?
It's
It wasn't.
yeah. In fact, I have here, where I don't know, where somewhere on my shelf I have the first basic book my parents bought me when I was a kid.
Ah, Basic. I remember Basic.
What I like about Evan's camera frame is it is like a window into like 1985. It's great.
Platinum, I think, came out in '86 or '87 or something.
Okay.
Yeah. This is
That's
Is that like a third power supply on the side of that?
this is the very famous Kensington System Saver.
Oh.
Every Apple II. Yeah, so the Apple II power switch is on the back, and everybody had to have one of these Kensington System Saver. So you plug from the computer to the back of this, and from this to the wall, and it's got this great red switch on the front here, and turns on. There's a separate fan, and it goes into where the vents are. But everybody had an Apple II. So it was almost like your Apple II. They gave you a Kensington System Saver, and they gave you a TV computer switch, whatchamacallit.
It's like a case on a smartphone. You can't walk out of there without one. Kind of.
Yeah. What were those switches called? I should know this.
Oh,
UF,
search. No, the
not
I'm
UF.
embarrassed I don't know this.
The
You know what I'm
UH,
talking about.
UHF.
The UHF, VHF
Yes.
slider, yeah. So those are two pretty standard features on this.
my kid's not gonna know what that is. What is Dad? What's UHF? VHF? Like, well, they're radio frequencies, and they're most famous for basically bringing TV into your dad's home.
Yeah.
And I remember the day we got this computer, and my parents went to a place called Hammock Computer Center on East Brunswick, New Jersey, and buying a computer back then was a big deal, And I remember, so they were doing the paperwork for the Apple II, and the salesman was trying to keep my brother and I out of our parents' hair. So he said, "Kids, look at this," and he showed us what I now know was a Mac. And I remember, again, very distinctly, he showed us the mouse, and it just made sense because we already knew how to control a joystick and a sprite on Atari, And I remember, like it was yesterday, no one had to show us how to use a mouse. It just made perfect sense. And yet my parents were, perfectly educated people. As an adult, I had to sit down and show them, okay, this moves in proportion to that, and you press the button. For me, it was a joystick and a sprite. It made perfect, just there was no explanation needed. But I'm glad my parents did it. I told my parents, hey, we want this computer. And they said, no, we're getting Apple II. And I'm glad we did, because with the Mac, I might not have learned BASIC and stuff. Yeah. And I also know all my parents had a Commodore budget, but we got the Apple II because my mom worked for the school district, so we had the big discount on the Apple II.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah, I was lucky.
You gotta save a bunch of money back then doing that. Roger, I think we have everything. Are we good?
Yeah, you can.
Sorry, you got me started.
Oh no! I'm the audio's other than AGR. I think everything's good. So let me get.
Misbehaving, or is it working?
It was working the other 2 days. The difference is, unlike Tom, my system, or the way I'm doing it, is essentially scraping the YouTube feed. So typically it comes in maybe 30, 60 seconds.
Comes in a little later, yeah. What channel? Me to do it?
Sure. I mean, I have it running now, so I don't know if that will.
Oh, is it running? It didn't show when I got in. Hold on. Oh, no, I do see. It doesn't say live, but that may not mean anything. So usually what he has me do is he has me do the Daily Tech News Show server-side audio, like the DTNS 2, and then I run... Oh, no, it says you're running these.
Yeah.
Oh, it must be working then.
Okay.
Something's caching on the images. It must not. It must be me.
All right, so I am going to hide my video and silence my audio, and then so basically, Evan, Scott's going to start the top of the show. You're going to hit record, Scott, right before the
Yep.
Patreon read cold open. You do it. You
Why do I
introduce
see
it.
Why do I see Engadget on my screen?
Oh, that's me. We do a screen share. This is for the news bit. I basically
Okay.
pull up news stories.
Yes, when I'm talking, he'll throw those up for the audience that are watching live, and they'll see some of that stuff as we go.
So we are good right now. So I'll leave it up to you when you want to start. So like in the next 10 seconds.
Yeah, I'm pretty much ready. So I'm going to hit record on my side. Everything sounds good on levels. Do this intro, and I'll bring you in, and off we'll go. So here we go. Chat room hi. It's good to see you all. Glad you're here. If you're listening, get off of this and have fun in Japan. All right? What are you doing? All right, here we go. In 3, 1.
The Daily Tech News Show is brought to you by listeners like me. To find out more, visit dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Daily Tech News Show for Wednesday, August 31st, 2016. I am Scott Johnson. I am filling in for the still vacationing Tom Merritt. If you've been listening at all this week, you know that Tom is in Asia getting the best ramen perhaps known to man. I don't know actually what he's doing today, but I know he's in Asia for sure, and I'm thrilled to be here. We got a bunch of stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about vintage computing today. I have a guest with me who knows all about that. It is Ev Koblentz. He's the author of Abacus to Smartphone, The Evolution of, and president and co-founder of Vintage Computing Federation Incorporated. That is a 501c3 nonprofit. It's so good to have you here, Evan. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Scott. It's Vintage Computer Federation, Inc.
Oh, did I get that wrong? I thought I had
You say
it.
computing.
I said computing, didn't I? Well,
Close enough.
look at me. Can't compute. Does not compute. It's good to have you here. I'm excited to talk about some of the stuff that you've been dealing with over the years and some of these awesome collections that you have and what people might want to look for today if they're looking for a way to maybe recoup some of the cost of their 20-year-old Mac in the garage or something. We'll get all of that in a second. But real quick, this is just a side note for folks. Bill Nye lands a Netflix show. It's called Bill Nye Saves the... And the show will feature Bill Nye tackling specific topics from a scientific point of view. I think it's a marriage made in heaven. I'm pretty excited about it. Show is set to debut in spring of 2017. And now, some top stories. So, last week, Dropbox forced password resets for all accounts that have not changed their passwords since 2012. If you think you're maybe one of those people, I want to listen to this. Motherboard followed up that story with a report that it has uncovered some 68,680,741,000 Dropbox account details. That's a lot of account details. The accounts were found in 4 files that totaled 5 GB in size. Currently circulating the database sharing community, both Dropbox and security expert Troy Hunt have confirmed the data is legit. However, Motherboard does note 32 million of those passwords were found to be secured by a strong hashing function. I checked my email. Turns out I was notified, but I had changed. Apparently, I've changed my password since 2012 because it never gave me the prompt when I logged into Dropbox the next time, which is what the email said. So, people at home, check your email boxes. Make sure it didn't go to spam. Make sure you're okay with Dropbox because that's a pretty big leak of a lot of data, and you want to be safe. Apple also launched a 2 terabyte iCloud storage tier today. That's 2 terabyte plan. Which is their largest available. It'll set users back $19.99 a month. I think that's too expensive. We'll talk about that in a second. 9to5 speculates that because of the previous largest tier, 1 terabyte was roughly 8x larger than the largest iPhone device storage option. It suggests that a 256 gigabyte iPhone SKU might be in the works, and if they put this out ahead of that, that would make a little bit of sense. Evan, does it strike you as a little expensive for 2 terabytes? It seems like not a lot of space for $20 a month.
It does strike me as a bit expensive. Although if anyone will pay for it, it's Apple.
Yeah, they will, right? Well, here's the problem. I'm an Apple person, but I've never fallen for the iCloud pricing. It just is kind of a bad deal, and the starter amount, which is, 5 gig a month for free, is nothing. It just doesn't count for anything. I can't really use it for anything meaningful, so I use the aforementioned Dropbox and a million other services that work pretty well for what I need to do with apps and that whole ecosystem, so it's just not been an issue for me. But I wonder out there if the rest of sort of the iCloud world is looking at this and watering at the mouth that they can now have this much space for only $20 a month. And I look at it and think that's just, I feel like Apple is not, how do I put this? It's not an honesty thing, but they're not being too forthright on at least acknowledging the current state of storage costs, which is almost nothing these days. And the fact that I can get 30 gigabyte a month from Google for $1.99 or whatever it is kind of ridiculous. So
and also security-wise, people, whether it's Dropbox or Apple or anyone else, people forget that cloud just means someone else's computer.
Right.
There's no magic cloud.
Yeah,
it's just someone else's computer.
It's fun to dispel that cloud thing with people who really do have this vision in their head that there's like something floating up there and all secure and everything.
It's just somebody else's computer. That's it.
Just a server farm somewhere.
Yeah.
That's how it works. Anyway, we'll see how that goes. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that sources familiar with the matter say that Google is planning on rolling out a carpooling rideshare service in San Francisco. That may sound familiar. In May, Google began a pilot program around its California HQ, allowing Waze users, so that's the Waze app, if you're not familiar with them buying Waze, they actually own that, that this allowed them to connect with other commuters. The company plans to expand the program this fall. The program charges 54 cents a mile, and Google doesn't charge a fee. And the talk is that Google believes the income would be taxable, or wouldn't be taxable, because the payment would effectively just be gas money. Any thoughts on Google getting into the ride-sharing world?
No.
Right on. I'll say this: whenever Google gets their hands in a new place, a new part of the industry, I always imagine that those who already occupy that space get nervous or what they're going to do, and maybe there's nothing to worry about here. Maybe both Lyft and Uber can just sit and smile and not worry about it too much. But just the idea that Google's moving in on your potential market can be a little frightening. In a blog post, Google announced a new search mode called In-Apps. This is interesting. In-Apps will allow users to find content installed apps on your device. The new search mode works with Gmail, Spotify, and YouTube, and will feature support for Facebook Messenger, LinkedIn, Evernote, Google Keep, Glide, and To-Do List in the coming months. To access the feature, users need to go to the Google app on your Android phone and or device and find it in the Apps tab. The LG V20 phone owners will be able to access the new apps mode directly with a dedicated shortcut on the home screen. Seems like a nice feature. I wish I could do a little more sort of smart searchy between apps and within apps and that sort of thing. Do you think it'll be hard, Evan, for other third-party app developers and some of the bigger boys to get involved so that they can have the same functionality?
It depends how well Google puts out SDKs and how well they advertise it, I guess. My idea of apps is this is my idea of apps.
Yeah, I like it. Big 5 1/4 inch flop. For those at home who are listening to the audio podcast, that is some vintage floppy you got right there. I like it. I have to ask you, actually, I'm glad you brought that up, or you held that up, rather, because later I've got to ask you about this giant one I've got over here. Oh, where is it? It's like 10 inches, this thing.
It's an 8-inch one.
8-inch, that must be it. And it's, I don't know what it ever went into or whatever. So when we
I can tell you about that.
Okay, when we get to the part of the show, I want to know all about it. I want to know if it's worth any money and whether or not I should just hang it on the wall and appreciate it for what it is.
You got it.
All right, we'll get to that in a second. Oh gosh, what else? Hey, check it out. Acer in the news. They unveiled a slew of new laptops, including a new convertible Chromebook R13 Plus, a new line of Windows 10 Swift notebooks, and spin convertible laptops with Intel's 7th generation core processors. But what really got our head spinning is this: what Acer is calling the first laptop with a curved screen. This is the Predator 21X. The notebook comes with a 21-inch, as you might guess, curved screen. And I don't know how that's going to shut. I still have questions about this, but hey, until we see it, I guess who knows. It also has the Tobii eye tracking technology. The machine will come pre-installed with Windows 10, Intel's latest 7th generation processor, 2 GeForce GTX 1080s. Those are 2 fast freaking GPUs, man. And 5 cooling fans. And you need 2 power supplies to run it. It comes with a hefty 17 pounds. That's 8 kilograms for those in the metric. And it ships first quarter of 2017. Will retail for, get ready for this, $5,000. Evan, that sounds like when you had to go buy a computer in 1986, does it not?
Not even half that much. If you ask me what I think of a curved screen on a laptop, the answer is nothing nice.
Oh,
There's
really?
nothing nice to say about that.
Why would you not want a curved screen laptop? Just curious.
Why would you?
It's a fine question. I mean, I'm kind of racking my brain. Now, I will admit.
I suppose, being open-minded, I suppose if you had a curved screen laptop, maybe you could help with security because people sitting next to you couldn't see it if it's pointed at you from both directions, maybe a little. I don't know. And if that is the case, if they were aiming at enterprise users, maybe they could hike the price a little bit, but not $5,000.
It's a lot of money.
You can get a security filter for $20.
Yeah, I kind of agree. As far as curved screens go, I'm not really that big of a proponent of it when it comes to televisions, but I've kind of been converted to a 20 how big is this thing? 36-inch curved screen that I bought for my PC for gaming. And I like it because there is this weird effect of only sitting a few feet back from the screen of it kind of wrapping around you and creating I don't know, a more immersive experience.
Oh, well, I've never had one, so maybe I'll try it one day.
It's pretty cool, but anybody telling you that you need to pay $5K to have the privilege, I think maybe that's a little much for now. But hey, I know there's a market. I know some guys that are ready to throw cash down on something like this. Dual GeForce GTX 1080s, that is just about as fast as you're going to get, and you're going to be fast for a very long time. So,
and it makes that 2 terabytes for $20 a month seem like a bargain.
Right. I'll buy. You know what? iCloud for everybody at this rate. A lot cheaper than buying this notebook. Finally, in the news, Instagram now finally lets you zoom and pinch on photos. I have been asking for this forever. People say, why? Who needs it? Well, I want detail. I want to zoom in. I want to see what the front of the guy's car looks like, or I want to get a nice close shot of that potato you took a picture of, or whatever. And it always drove me crazy that I was limited to this tiny little few-inch sort of view and not be able to zoom and pinch, where I can do that with every other photo service, with every other app, and even on the web when I would look at an Instagram photo, I could do something to make it zoom there. I could do Command Plus or something to get a little closer to the image. They're going to let you do it now. This also goes for videos and profiles to explore. The feature is coming to iOS today. An Android version to ship in the coming weeks. Not sure what that means. Probably the next couple of weeks. Very excited about that update. I think that's going to be great. Are you a user of any of these social networks, Evan?
Not so much on the image side. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have an Instagram for the nonprofit, but no. Obviously, Facebook and Twitter and stuff, but I don't use the image ones. I'm not really much of a photography person.
Sure. Well, for those out there who have been begging for this, your day has come. And for those who don't care, it's not really that big a deal. But it's about time, guys. Way to go. I want to thank, big thanks to JJ Hessman, PC Guy 8088, and all those who participated in the subreddit. Bring us stories each and every day. Submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.com. Or sorry, I got that wrong. dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. So many people contribute, and it's really, really nice when you do. So continue doing that, and that is a look at the headlines. All right, Evan, let's dig into this. I'm a big fan of old stuff. I think this was a feature of my personality passed down from my dad. He kept everything. I wouldn't call him a pack rat necessarily, but we hung on to slide projectors a lot longer than I think you're supposed to. He had old Super 8 cameras and stuff that were long past functionality, yet there they were in the basement. And it was always fascinating for me to go downstairs and say, what's up with this reel-to-reel thing that was bought in 1954, and try to record on it. I mean, it was like being in a mad scientist lab or something with all this old stuff my dad had. He's a little bit before the time that we would have started to collect our computing devices, and that was just a little bit after his prime. Had he been around or had he been younger during that time, I'm guessing he would have storage units full of Apple IIe's and Commodore 64s and Amigas and what have you. You're kind of that guy, or at the very least, you're an expert on what it means to be a collector of vintage computing. How much of that stuff do you have? Just give us a ballpark of the kind of the range of things that you've got at your fingertips.
Our organization has a 7,000 square foot warehouse.
Oh man!
And we have everything from, I believe, our oldest individual artifact is an IBM 026 key punch or an IBM 083 sorter. I'm not sure which one's actually older. They're both from the 40s. Or up to early 90s, some internet appliances and Newton and that kind of thing.
Was there a place where you cut off or stopped, or felt like I've got everything I need to know, or do you just need to let enough time happen until something's vintage again?
Yeah, you never have too much stuff.
Mm.
But you don't want to hoard. You want to collect with a purpose, right?
Right.
When I got into the hobby, the vintage computing hobby, about maybe the 2002, 2003, people talked about, the 10-year rule. And then somebody said, well, that could be Windows 95. Okay, well, the 15-year rule. And after a while, it got ridiculous because it just kept tacking years onto it.
Yeah.
So most of us have stopped using years entirely, and it's more of a I know it when I see it. There are some people who say, well, if it can run DOS natively, if it can't do modern software, it's vintage. Well, that means Windows 98, or that's Windows. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because to most of us, these are just used commodity PCs. So I stick with I know it when I see it. Most of us who are active collectors are, say, 30 to 50. So for our generation, vintage is 8 bits.
Sure.
Right. With a couple exceptions, Amiga, SGI, some early Sun, but pretty much 60s to 80s, before which only museums like ours have the stuff, after which it's pretty commodity.
Well,
but the last couple of years, I am seeing quite a few people who are half my age, even in their late teens, who are digging out their parents' Pentium 1 and say, wow, retro, man.
Yeah, big time.
It makes my head explode, but hey, when I started collecting Apple IIs, I'm sure there were, mini computer people who made their hair explode too.
Well, they probably had, big vacuum tubes or whatever they were into and punch cards and all
right.
that.
And so the best analogy I use to explain our hobby is we do the exact same thing as people who collect antique cars, right? No one's saying they're better, but they add chrome and fins and white walls. You fix them up, take them out for a Sunday drive, go to shows. The big difference is that when I was a kid, my dad took me to old car shows, and I said, this is awesome. Someone's 34 Ford, 57 Chevy. Let's go for a ride. To me, it was obvious. It's an awesome thing to do. Let's take it for a ride. And they said, oh, dumb kid, what do you know? And that was very insulting. It's a machine.
Right.
So at our events, we require the exhibitors to have everything up and running.
Oh, and that's actually one of my questions. If you can say that I have, this ancient Mac up in the cellar. It's a Mac Classic, and it was made in '91 or whatever, and it's old and dusty, but I don't think it works. But hey, shouldn't that be worth something? Your answer to that would be no. Like a vintage car, you need to have that in some kind of shape, right?
No, it's worth something. Generally speaking, the more they made, the less it's worth. So a run-of-the-mill Mac Classic or a run-of-the-mill Commodore 64 TRS-80 is not worth it. It's worth something, but not much because there's simply so many of them. However, every day there are a few fewer of them. On the other extreme, last week we saw an Apple I go for $815,000.
Yeah.
And the winner openly said in public that he was willing to bid up to a couple mil.
Yeah.
So, there's a whole range in between.
It's obvious. Yeah, it's obviously there's some money in it. There's a Wall Street Journal article that came up that kind of prompted this discussion today about how much is that PC in the attic. It's titled. That's by Andrew Blackman.
Yes, I was part of that story, I believe.
Yeah, you were featured in here.
Was I? Okay.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, maybe featured's a big word, but they talk a lot in here about establishing value, who's got passion for this sort of thing, how you know if you've got something that's rare or not.
By the way, the guy in the picture with the Niner shirt on, he's my group's West Coast VP.
Oh, cool. All right, and he's representing the finest team in the NFL, I would argue.
Well, I'm a New Jersey Giants fan, not New York.
So if I came to you though with something I actually have, I have an old Apple Newton. The original model sitting over there actually would work if I put batteries in it. Has the box and all that other stuff. Is that a thing that I could take someplace, have evaluated, decide to sell it, that sort of thing?
Absolutely. Newtons, and a lot of the early handhelds are quite collectible.
And the oldest thing you've got is what? What's the oldest single device you've got?
Well, I mentioned earlier. I'm pretty sure. I have to look up the chronology. But either our 026 key punch or our 083 sorter are probably our oldest. Now, our oldest full computer is a Bendix G15 from 1956, serial number 3 out of 500 made.
Wow.
And it's a fun story with that one because Bendix made that computer from 56 to 64 unchanged. And ours says control data on the front, CDC. and CDC acquired Bendix in '63. So we just assumed ours was one of the last of the run. And then we found out ours is actually number 3. It was an 8-year lease, turned back in. CDC bought the company, rebadged it, and sold to the next customer.
Wow.
So it actually is a 56 model.
That's incredible. So do you think there's much of an impact on these kinds of older computing devices on contemporary technology? In other words, places I might see it is like musicians are making chip tunes, and they're doing it with old 8-bit processors and old 8-bit computers. You see it in other aspects of technology where vintage equipment is being used, not just in artsy-fartsy ways, but in sometimes technically helpful ways. Do you think that's a thing that we can look at this old stuff and find?
Well, I mean, every once in a while there's articles in the news about the Air Force and nuclear silos still have something 8-inch floppies or whatever. And what gets me is the people who write that always spin it as, oh, look at our pathetic government, how backward they are using this old stuff, and they should be mocked. But quite the opposite is true. If it works and it's that important, keep it. You know, they use some of these old machines because they're that reliable.
Yeah,
so the government should not be mocked for this.
Right, and it doesn't always mean that they're behind the times or their IT people are out of touch or anything like that. It could just literally mean they finally got to a place that is secure enough where they're comfortable enough with it that you can't swap that out every year. And that leads me to my other question. How long it feels like if I buy a new computer today, I feel like I'm getting way more years out of it than I did even 10 years ago. Do you find that that's true? Actually, I find this true with cars and other things too. It just seems like stuff is lasting longer in the computing age than it used to, or we are perhaps diminishing returns on processor power, RAM capability, that sort of thing.
I think it's true, and I think the numbers would show, whether it's a PC or especially a mobile device, people are upgrading less because you just don't need to. The hardware is good enough. I mean, in my pocket, my daily phone is a Galaxy Note 4, and so there's the 5 and the 7 now. They skipped the 6, but this is perfectly good. It's Android 6, and it does everything I need. Even it's a 3-year-old phone, it's still better than most phones.
Yeah. You ever look at that phone and go, oh man, I wish you were the latest thing ever? That sort of thing just doesn't get to you. Once
in a while, like for example, I upgraded from the 3 to the 4 because I wanted Android 6, But I agree with you generally that today's hardware is so advanced, and there's fewer reasons to upgrade the software unless your operating system vendor makes you. It's one company out in Seattle, I think. But there's fewer reasons to upgrade, I think, in general.
So obsolescence comes slower is the bottom line, right? Like that just is going to be a slower process. I'm still using a Mac that's I think 7 years old upstairs, no problem. I mean
my daily PC is just a 5-6-year-old PC, but it's perfectly fast because it runs Linux. And people tell me, oh, my computer is 4 years old, and you get a new one, it's so slow. Tell them your computer is fine. It's not your computer. It's your bloated operating system.
That's a good point. So to finish things out, I'm very curious, what are the hot ones to have right now? What is it someone should have in their attic that if they can go find it, they're going to be lucky dogs? Like, what are the hot movers? C64s, Amigas, like what?
Well, I said that stuff is still very, very popular and commonplace. I think if I were starting to collect today, I would focus on newer things that are going to be collectible. The original first-gen iPod is already going for big bucks on eBay as a collector's item.
Yeah, that's true.
Things along those lines. I would focus on things that are novel now that maybe hold on to rather than throw out or upgrade it because they're going to be collectible one day.
One day, original iPads will go for money. One day, I have this Creative Labs Nomad MP3 player that came out prior to the iPod. It looks like a CD player, kind of, this big chunky blue thing. I really want that to be worth something one day because I've still held on to it. I'm frustrated that I've gotten rid of all my game consoles as new ones have come out. I wish I would have held on to all of that. Do you find game consoles are kind of in this ballpark as well? Old NESs, Super Nintendos, Genesis, that sort of stuff?
Actually, we're happy on the computer side to be in their ballpark. The vintage gaming world dwarfs the vintage computing world.
Oh, interesting.
They have their own. I mean, our shows are, Computer History Museum will get a couple thousand people, etc. The vintage gaming world rents out convention centers. They have massive events. They dwarf us.
Wow.
But what's interesting to me is a lot of people I meet are collectors and don't know it yet. To use the computer term, they're accumulators. and they
Okay.
think they're the only one. And then one day, by accident, they realize other people do this too, and they realize it's a hobby they're part of. They just didn't know it. If you ask me when did our hobby, vintage computing, become mainstream, I say the day Steve Jobs died, because that's the first time there was a public figure beyond the computing world who passed away, and everyone felt kind of sad and looked back and started to care about computer history, even if they themselves weren't computer people.
That's very
And
interesting.
so I think Steve Jobs' death is the day computer history became a mainstream thing.
Wow, that's a big moment that I'm not sure I even noticed, but now that you say it, I think I did.
Because I meet a lot of people. You know, if I use 100 people on the street, hey, do you know about old cars?
Yeah.
For most people, the car is just a point A, point B. They're not car people, but they know car people exist. They know old car people exist, whether they're personally interested or not. And yet, before Steve Jobs died, if I picked 100 IT guys, they would say, well, why would I want an old computer when I can have a new one?
Right.
Why should that be? But when Steve Jobs died, suddenly people cared and realized that there is a history of computing.
Well, I have a 19-year-old that wants nothing but typewriters and weird old technology and tapes, so I totally get it. I think they will help keep this world alive. Let's get to a message of the day. We got an email here from Brett Stewart. Emailed us regarding the Chromebook story yesterday, and he writes this. I wanted to write in regarding Pat's inquiries about the Chromebook and its use purposes. By the way, we should mention, Evan, you're using a Chromebook right now, right?
I love my Chromebook. It's my favorite computer since the Tanium Model 100.
Oh, wow. Listen, see, that's some high praise. Got to even have an old vintage computer to compare it to. That's fantastic.
The Tanium Model 100 ran for 8 hours on 4 AA batteries.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, granted, it all had a power, was a little tiny screen, but the Chromebook, you open it up and it's on, and it just works. And by the way, people dig on the Chromebook for not having offline apps, but it does, and they're good ones.
Yeah, they're good. I really like my Chromebook. I think it's awesome.
I love my Chromebook. Yeah.
Well, he goes on to say, as a big advocate of the hardware for select usage, maybe I can shed some light on it. He says, I have a lot of older people in my life, my grandparents, aunts, uncles, and my mother approaching 60. None of them understand computers very well. The Chromebook has been the solution for them. It's really easy to use, it's portable, it's got great battery life, and there's less room for error. I can worry less about them clicking something they shouldn't with Chromebooks due to the limited capability versus them wandering around on a Mac or Windows OS. I can't tell you how many times I have fixed Windows for one of these people. Chromebook, I remote in on a rare occasion and fix a simple issue. As a family gatekeeper of tech, I couldn't be more pleased at how well the older folks have done with them. For my usage, I have a Chromebook stowed away for simple uses, take quick notes, writing music, hooking into my apartment's sound system, and so on. For me, it's more effective than a tablet for those uses. I imagine students in high school or younger would find valid uses too, especially in low-income school districts. The catch, none of these devices cost more than $150 to $250. The $1,200 Chromebook has always been an absurd idea, the completely wrong price for the demographic, which I agree with, by the way.
You know, I bought my Chromebook for $199 brand new, and it's perfectly good.
Right.
I have a lot of friends who are teachers, and they love them in their schools.
What brand did you get? Just curious.
I have a Acer.
Oh, okay, yeah. I've heard great things about the Acers. In fact, I'm getting in the market. I have an older HP, and I think I'm in the mood for something new, so I may be looking at Acer.
I wouldn't mind buying the kind that flips over to become a tablet, but I'm very happy with this.
Well, that's awesome. Big thanks for that email, Brett. I think we here generally agree with you. I think Chromebooks are coming into their own, and I'm excited about what the future holds for that stuff. Hey, real quick, we got a Amateur Traveler Podcast Minute with Chris Christensen. He's awesome. I know him. You know him. You love him. And here he is.
This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler with another Tech in Travel Minute. When I was on the Daily Tech News Show recently, both Tom and I mentioned that one of our favorite travel apps is the TripIt app, but I don't really think we mentioned what it does. TripIt is both an app and a website and a service. With TripIt, when you get an email from your hotel or airline reservation, you can simply forward that to plans@tripit.com, and TripIt will recognize the email that it's getting this from and will automatically add it to an itinerary for a trip for you. And so if you want to keep track of multiple upcoming trips, you can do it very simply. And some days I wouldn't even know what city I'm in if I couldn't open up TripIt and find out. Tom mentioned to me after we stopped recording that he also uses TripIt's feature that lets you keep track of your airline miles and how many you have on different carriers. The paid version of TripIt also lets you get notifications when there are gate changes or delays in your flights, and that has come in very handy sometimes. I'm Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler.
Thank you, Chris. That's awesome. TripIt's everybody. Use it, have it, live it, catch it. Hey, I cannot say enough thanks to Evan. Evan Koblentz, author of Abacus to Smartphone, The Evolution of Mobile and Portable Computers, and president and co-founder of Vintage Computer Federation Incorporated. Again, that's a 501c3 nonprofit. Love the work that you're doing there. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us or where people can go to learn more?
Sure thing. People can visit us at VCFed, Vintage Computer Federation, so vcfed.org. We have our museum in New Jersey. We own the largest discussion site for the hobby on the internet called the Vintage Computer Forum. We put on events like VCF East and VCF West every year. And please check us out, social media as well. You said you had an 8-inch disc you wanted to show me.
Oh, yeah, and I don't know where it is, but okay, so I got this. I'm glad you reminded me. I've got a big 8-inch floppy. I don't know where it is. Dang it. I'd love to hold it up for the camera. But I don't know where it came from. I don't know how I got it. It is definitely before my time in terms of when I started doing things. 5 1/4 is about as far back as I go. What was that used for? If I had somewhere to put it now, where would it be?
It's the exact same thing as a 5 1/4, just older, bigger, less reliable, hell less data, and costs more.
Just as I suspected.
8-inch discs really are quite floppy. That's why they're called. I mean, throughout the late 60s and 70s, there were plenty of computers, business mini computers, and even consumer computers that had 8-inch drives. 8-inch drives weigh 20, 30 pounds. They're beast. And they simply, like anything else, had to get smaller, cheaper, better, but they even look like 5 1/4 just scaled up. They really are the same thing.
Wow. Well, all right then. Now I know exactly what to do with that thing. It's probably not worth anything, right? Like you can't sell that on eBay for. I mean, I could probably sell it for something.
You probably could, but if I just had the one that were you in unknown condition, I would just hang it on the wall.
Yeah, I just want to hang it up, make it look cool or something. I don't know what to do with it.
What you need to do is get yourself an 8-inch drive.
There you go. Let's see what data's on there. Finally, we'll know what important data has been on that 8-inch floppy.
Send me the disk. I'll read it for you.
All right, sweet. You probably have plenty of those things, I'm guessing.
We do.
That's insane.
And teletype and punch cards and paper tape, you name it.
My goodness. A huge pleasure having you on, Evan. Thanks so much for being with us.
All right, thanks for having me.
I want to thank everybody else out there for supporting the show. As you know, I'm just sitting here taking over for Tom for a day. I have other days too I'm doing, but it's not because I'm better than Tom. In fact, Tom just towers over us all like the Time Lord that he is. But while I'm here, I at least want to remind you that you can support this show by going to patreon.com/DTNS and help them out. It's how they pay for the show. There are no ads. There are no other ways to do it. It's all crowdfunded, and you guys are the backbone of it all. So please do that. If you want to just send us headlines, that's fine too. You can subscribe to the Daily Tech News Show Reddit page, which I mentioned earlier, and I'll tell you about that again if I can find the address. Yeah, this is my first goof for the show. That's great. Where is it? There we go. It is dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. I should know that. Or reddit.com/r/dailytechnewsshow, whichever way you'd prefer to go. The show is live every Monday through Friday, and I'm not sure who's on tomorrow, but I know it's going to be rad. Oh, it'll be Patrick Bejan and Jen Cutter tomorrow, it looks like. Thank you guys for being here. Email them, feedback at Daily Tech News Show. It's going to do it for us, for me, for Evan, and for the vacationing Tom. We'll see you next time. This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
And we're clear.
Woohoo! Hey, Scott.
Yeah, that was great. Evan, I'm so glad you were my guest today.
Thank you. I had to restrain myself from making a sarcastic comment about your 8-inch floppy.
That's all right. Everybody has to hold back.
Because you said you said something along the lines of, I have an 8-inch floppy. I don't want to hold it up for the camera, and I was like, I was like trying hard not to crack up when you said that.
I tend to throw people softballs all the time like that and not even notice I'm doing it. So
I restrain myself. Family-friendly show.
It's all good.
Hold it up for the camera.
Roger, we all good on your end?
Yeah, let's quickly go through titles.
All right. You can help us pick a title if you want.
Top of the heap is Retro Tech News Show, followed up by Vintage Computing Never Gets Old. That one I like. It's pretty funny. There's the Eye Gouge. They should call it Goober. I'm a big fan of old stuff.
They should call it Goober?
Goober.
All right, we're probably not going to use that, but I'm going to vote for it because that's amazing.
That's great. When I used to be at eWeek, every April Fool's Day we had an internal, spoof head cover. And one year there was an earthquake in Seattle, so the spoof headline was "God smites Microsoft, misses."
Oh,
Oh, that's great.
there's it's not a horde; it's a collection.
Mm-hmm.
Dropbox drops the ball. Accidental collectors. When Tom's away, Rush will play it. That's not a floppy. This is a floppy. Someone had to put that in there. They don't make tech like they used to.
I like the one. It's not a horde; it's a collection. I like that one.
That was not bad. I like it's not a hard collection. And I also like vintage computing never gets old because it's a funny, ironic.
It's a nice play on words. I'd vote for that. I'd vote for vintage computing never gets old.
All right, let's do that one.
YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook all merge and become UTwitface.
Yeah, UTwitface. Hey, I had a dog that was a Cocker Spaniel, a Shih Tzu, and a Poodle, and we called it a Cock-a-Shih-Tzu.
Yeah.
It was the best day of my life when we could do that.
I have a cat named Floppy Discat.
Of course you do, Evan.
I call her Flops.
Of course.
Floppy Discat.
I'm not surprised. You probably have, I don't know, a dog named USB Stick or so. I mean, this is
No.
amazing.
Floppy Discat.
That's really great. All right, yeah. So there's your title.
Cool.
We'll do that one. And I guess Evan, we can let you go. Huge thanks again, man. It was awesome having you on. That really made my job easier today.
Thank you for having me. Hope I didn't sound too dumb.
Oh, not at all.
I got a face made for radio and a voice made for print.
Well, I have some combination of those things, and I'm not sure which.
All right. So people are already asking me when should I have a link I can send them.
The link will be in the show notes for the for the show. I'll email it to you this evening. I basically have to post everything.
Okay.
But I should have it
Feel
up.
free to put my email in there if you want. Just evan@vcfed.org.
Okay.
Perfect.
Into the actual show post?
Sure, it's fine. I like email.
Okay. Cool.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you so much.
All right. My pleasure.
See you later.
I will stop the broadcast now. Thank you, everyone, for listening. You've been awesome, and thanks for supporting the show.
Yeah, thanks, guys.